North America. That was a nonsense idea. It could never have happened. In fact, if anything, Europe was like a mini pipeline to North America. People went there for the millions of dollars and the big contracts, etc. One of the things I've always hated is they absolutely rested on their laurels for a long time. And as I pointed out with the earlier thing, it's only when things go drastically wrong, they start just pressing buttons and pulling levers and taking things down. So here's one thing I despise about that. I've always given the analogy that when Riot used to pat themselves on the back for like beating Counter-Strike, for example, by the way, we didn't have Asia for fuck's sake. I used to say that's like being a kid who was given your dad's Ferrari and you just beat a Ford Fiesta in a street race and you think you're hot shit. But in this situation, while you had the Ferrari was when you needed to do all the changes and you could have maxed it out. Now you don't have the Ferrari anymore. Now you're in a Ford Fiesta. Now the upgrades barely even work. Because think of some of the things they changed only at the end. As far as I can tell, because reality just told them you're just wrong on these topics, like BO3. They've already tried BO3 now, mate, because there's nothing left to try. They've tried everything else. Do you know how much BO3, if they'd done it properly, could have been insane in the Bjergsen Doublelift days? That could have been a way to triple your viewership, make it even bigger. I'll give you another example. How about the idea, let's turn Twitch subs on when no one fucking watches Twitch on our product anymore? Bro, think of those days when CLG and TSM were in the PAX games, where you have 500,000 people watching. Mate, that alone would have literally like subsidised part of the fucking league. Everyone idiot would have paid for it if they'd give me a little team icon in the chat or something bizarre like that. And then the last one I'll even throw out there, because they still haven't even done this, is the residency rules. Bro, you were just in the... Well, technically you still are. We haven't seen the next season yet. Last year, you were in the most popular North American League of Legends team. You proved, like all of them fucking have, that it's not about North American players. The fan lies when he says that. What he means is, in an ideal world, if everyone was as good as Chovy, I'd want my Chovy to be North American. If you actually offer them Parlofox or fucking Quad, mate, they will choose Quad. And if you tell them, I've got a squad that's got 2 North Americans in, but actually the rest of them are Europeans and the coaches, as long as it's good, mate, as long as it can go head-to-head with Gen G, that's all they actually care about. So I also think one of the other bizarre conceits was this notion that we're going to sort of like foster talent by limiting restrictions. I even think that's the most un-American sports move I can ever imagine. If anything, even Europe's had to learn the American sports method works. You just bring talent, bro. People watch talent. They want to watch top players. I think, again, if we go back in time in a time machine in 2020 and there's no import rules, mate, you could have all sorts of fabulous players coming to the LCS that could have been top 8 at Worlds and mixing it up in MSIs. And so, again, the point is, these are all things, like, these are totally valid potential changes, but it feels like Riot only considers them when there's nothing left to try. The joke is, by the way, that's actually one of my all-time favourite quotes that Christopher Hitchens used to say. He used to say the thing about the United States of America is they always do the right thing after they've tried everything else.
Yeah. Hey guys, you're watching the State of League of Legends. Not only League of Legends, hopefully traditional cash out those with League of Legends or less yacht in. Or man.
Yeah, it's a pretty good summary. I mean, obviously, like, having watched it at a distance now, because I'm like a lot of people, I just got bored of the product, I guess, and there's only like so many hours in a day, right, that you can like realistically dedicate to it. There's I was getting more and more into the Dota esports scene to the point where I'm actually working in it now, and so it's like, it's no contest for me which one I'm going to dedicate more time to. But I think on top of that as well, what you're talking about with that guy who's got kids now, Riot never had a contingent.
That's me, by the way.
When our fans started aging out. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's technically it's all of us. If we're all still fans of the league, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just that you've got kids. It's that, you know, you got wives and, you know, partners and, you know, maybe elderly
other interests and obligations. I mean, like, you know, the fact of the matter is like, I didn't watch hardly any LTA last year, and I am somebody who has been the most involved in League of Legends out of almost anybody on Earth. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty damning. And it's not even, and I'm sure I'm in Korea, but it's on in like the morning, my time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not terrible time zone for me.
It's not just their choice around like the scheduling thing, which everybody pointed out to them at the time. I mean, like, it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna try this and it's like 50-50 dissenting voices. Everybody said that is a shitty time zone and you're gonna kill viewership by doing that, right? It's a shitty, days to having it on through the week. And it's going to kill viewership if you do that. But equally as well, it's like, where do I go if I want to catch up? Like, where do I go if I want to digest? Where do I go if I want to, like, know exactly where the state of the league is? I finally got some free time to myself. I want to reconnect. There isn't really a product that tailors to that.
LFN.
And there isn't every... okay. LFN, my bad. Go to the last three nations.
We're not in the client bubble. We're not being put by lives. Don't exist.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There really isn't. There really isn't a place you can go to get an equivalent digest product that you have in every other single sport. I mean, because think about it as well. In every other single sport, you have an abundancy problem, right? Which is, realistically, I cannot watch every game in my favorite sport all season. Like, there isn't enough hours in the day, right? We're talking hundreds and hundreds of games. So where do I go to catch, like, all of the highlights, all of the storylines, all of the results, and get it done in an hour or two tops?
One LCS match of the day, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there isn't one. I mean, like, they were talking about making one.
They sort of have. I feel like. Do you guys remember what was that show, Monty? That like, what was it called? You remember Riot?
It was on it.
Riot had that show, Monty, that was like. It wasn't called Loading Room or something. They had like this like parallel thing that they had that tried to. Like Riot has tried to service that. What you guys are talking about, and it never really took off. And I don't know if that's just like clips on Twitter is enough for people, or there just isn't enough fans, or whatever. There's tried to be like low and high produced, talent or talent agnostic clip shows, and they just never perform. Maybe it's because nothing's behind a paywall, and like theoretically you could watch whatever you want. But I feel like clips in the modern age clip shows, I guess, in the modern age have never really taken off. But I agree with you. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of an esports equivalent really that's been done well in the same way as sports thing is. But equally as well, yeah, it might not take off at the start. You have to understand it. This is Riot's folly. They don't really look too far ahead. When they made the game initially, they knew they had to pull out every dirty trick imaginable to get as much saturation of a player base.
Are we going to talk about the Dota All Stars website forum thing?
Oh, I mean, we could go into all of that. I love bringing all
talk
that
about Pentagon
up. I've already written about it many times.
Good times.
But I mean, like, there wasn't a dirty trick they weren't willing to pull to become market leaders. It was a level of kind of corporate ruthlessness we hadn't really seen in esports, right, to make their product successful. And it's like, okay, you've done that now. What next? And there's never they don't plan like, this is 5 stages. They plan, this is the stage, and then when we're successful, at the end of that, we're going to revisit. And so you have a highlight show that you broadcast at the most convenient time for everyone on a weekend. You have that highlight show. You might not need it year 1, year 2, because all your audience is young and they can watch all the games and stay up all night. And they're all NA, so they're all on fucking Adderall anyway, and they never sleep. They're just vampires.
Continue.
Hold on that one. Hold.
Yeah. Right.
Poker face.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. But by the time they're bouncing a baby on their fucking knee, they're gonna want to find that. They're gonna want to find that highlight show. Oh wait, there's one that's been going for a while with an established broadcast talent pool and a repartee. So that would have been a good idea, for me at least. But I think more importantly as well, when you've got other obligations, the important thing is what is going to make me rush an obligation or switch shit around so I can have the other thing as well. And again, you only get to do a very limited amount of this as an adult. It's like, right, I definitely want to watch the football, so on a weekend, the missus is definitely having the kids. And that means I'm doing all this other shit in the middle of the week when I'm tired from work. We're gonna make a concession so I can have the sport. It's not worth it for League of Legends in its current form. The product they've got is so diluted compared to what it used to be. Like, I used to legitimately get hyped for TSM, CLG. I used to...
It's an event back then, just for the match happening, wasn't it?
Just that one game.
Yeah,
I mean, keep in mind, that game, and that's back then, when Twitch viewership wasn't that high. That one game got the...
They'd have 500,000 concurrent viewers in 2015 for that game. In a regular season.
That one game in their league, in a regular season game with relatively low stakes, would eclipse the peak of the Overwatch League's highest ever day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So that's the product that they had back then. And it's like, You have to nurture that. TSM isn't even in the league anymore.
Neither CLG.
Why has that been allowed? Yeah, neither CLG. Why has this been allowed to happen?
Yes.
Like, who are the flagship characters in the league right now? Where are the Dyrus's? Where are the Saint Dishes? Where's the...
By the way, this is a point I always make on our show as well, because, by the way, it's also happening now in Chinese League of Legends, like RNG and FPX, or World Champions and MSI Champions, orgs have left the game. I always tell people, I actually don't think people realise how damaging that is as well, because remember, I can be a fan of a new set of players, but I'm not going to be a legacy fan of a new team. And it's why, actually, the joke is, we actually figured this out on IRC and Counter-Strike 20 years ago. You just let some twat take the fucking name and then start the next team with it, and call it Four Kings, even if it's nothing to do with the original Four Kings. Like, it might sound silly, but the joke is people would expect me to laugh because TSM left. I actually remember thinking TSM leaving is one of the darkest days in the history of fucking League of Legends. You've essentially just let, like, the 49ers just leave the NFL. Like, it doesn't matter whether you like them or not, mate. You have to have those orgs.
The topics you guys talk about is super interesting, Richard. And like that sort of stuff is stuff I ruminate on, right? Because my general mandate right now is to grow FlyQuest as much as possible in League of Legends and further to that. And there's a lot of different things you can kind of look at and explain the decline you're talking about. Because, for example, like League of Legends, I started watching League of Legends streamers on Justin TV before Twitch TV even existed. You know, it was Justin TV and owned at that time. Azubu was like the secret kind of like OGNLOL.com subscription service that did Azubu itself was only just like the name of two of the teams. It wasn't even its own like Azubu.tv platform yet. And the rise of Twitch TV was also the heyday of League of Legends. So one thing for you guys to think about that you probably haven't thought about is when a non-League of Legends person associated with a League of Legends event or streamer or, you know, entered the Curse House back when they used to like stream all of those like pre-liquid Curse days, that gave them legitimacy and relevance to the growing Twitch.tv audience. Nowadays, just chatting is the like apple of the eye of Twitch, and you don't see LCS players on, you know, just chatting streams. And that's the huge difference, is that League of Legends is absolutely the like prototype of a Twitch TV project. And look, we can obviously get into how they like fumbled their advantage and all these things, which is like a lot of what we all malign is how League of Legends didn't take 2014, 15 success as like, holy fuck, imagine how much more we could do with this success, and kind of like didn't want to like mess with what was working, which ultimately has hurt the growth of the game. But it is interesting how like now, you know, internally we're like, how can we get our players kind of like associated with just chatting in a way that would have been inverse, you know, 12 years ago, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think, you know, there were people who were very much on the just chatting / IRL streaming, and case in point is XQC. Because XQC, when he was an active Overwatch player, he would do a lot of...
We don't have
IRLs.
anyone in League of Legends quite as bad as how he was fumbled by.
Sure, yeah, that was terrible. But the idea here is that, you know, in 2017, so this has been the early days, 2018, of just chatting IRL, he was actually on his phone live streaming from the Overwatch League studio or from BlizzCon at the Overwatch World Cup. He would just come up to me and like talk to me on his live stream and stuff like that. But he was doing all this stuff. Like, we don't have League of Legends players who are even trying to do that, or Riot, who is, you know, doing this. Nobody's like behind the scenes at the LCS studio on their phone doing an IRL stream, being like, here's what we're going to do for the game, here's this person, I'm going to talk to them. Like, XQC is, you know, a different breed for sure. But it was insane how, especially at the Overwatch World Cup, he was just walking around talking to all these players from all these different countries and like tapping into their fan base. And sure, that fumble by Overwatch League was immense, like no doubt. But
not just a fumble. I mean, they tried. Let's be clear. They tried to actively.
They drove him out. You know. Like,
yes,
absolutely.
No, it was terrible. It was so.
The narrative around him is a disgrace. I mean, put it this way: saying someone is homophobic, right? We have all told people to suck a dick at some point in your life, like suck a dick, suck my dick, go suck a dick. You do this. If you say that to someone and you're not aware they're gay, and they do the Uno reverse. By the way, I'm gay. Like, and so, like, oh, what, I'm a homophobe now? Like, nah, it's a phrase. Like, that is ridiculous. And like, literally, Activision, people at Activision Blizzard know that's not homophobic, by the way, when they do that to someone. When anyone does that to someone. what they're doing is they're trying to put some fucking slime on you, some stink on you, so you can't go anywhere else. And put it this way, it's by the grace of some divine providence, in my opinion, that he's a top tier streamer, because I have to actually wince my ears. I have to tune into a frequency to understand what he's saying. Yet the kids love him, he's super popular, he's gonna be super successful.
It was also just unnecessary to do that to him, because he is a really reasonable person in my dealings with him.
Absolutely.
You could have totally obviously the stream thing is a persona, but you can have totally rational conversations with him, and I don't think he's some sort of crazy psycho. He's not. He's pretty normal, honestly.
If I try to look at how that happened, again, now that I've been on the business side, right? Because obviously I was just talent when that was happening. I think that the big reason it happened was because it was a developer-run league. It was Activision Blizzard's putting on the league, which means Activision Blizzard's internal business company HR, kind of what are you allowed to do and not allowed to do, and what can you speak about, and what can't you speak about, was all being led by, this is my assumption from the outside, by one team, and that has to apply to everyone, and it has to apply to the players. And the moment that you kind of decide that, the ripple effects are things like the Pepe's being banned and stuff like
so
that.
Stupid.
That's
I've said it before.
If that was ESL, or I look at what ESL does in their kind of content, because I try to forward examples of stuff I like in Counter-Strike now that I've been following that ecosystem really closely for the last 2 years. What they're still doing, not look at this from 2017, when obviously the meta was different, let's say, in terms of what you could or couldn't talk about. I'm oh, this is pretty edgy. It's cool that they're doing this. I just think if it was, OGN running the league, or, ESL running the league, I do think that that hard an edge, that one scenario wouldn't have happened, if you know what I mean. But the moment that it ends up being a mandate, because I feel it in smaller ways, where my League of Legends players will be at a public part of the office, eating lunch, and then using League of Legends slang, which sometimes edges towards things that you should not be saying in a business scenario pretty fast. And then I have to go around and explain to them hey, what would someone not in esports who walks by and hears this and takes it the wrong way because they don't know all of the data or all the context of what you're saying, take away. Please be mindful of that. Obviously I understand both worlds and can code switch between it, but when there's no code switching happening, when it's just Activision HR saying this is the mandate for literally tens, hundreds of thousands of employees across everything, that's where people get framed out this, XQC, and ended up having obviously explosive consequences.
Right, and
By the way, you're getting to another point though. This is actually a relevant point to League of Legends. Riot also, until the bitter end, it wasn't until the post-COVID era when they tried all that crazy stuff like Kiwi Cinderella and letting, I forget even the name of the Gambos, Gammy, the Tigras, and people do a little bit of edgy. Right, they waited too long for that too, mate. So here's another thing I can tell you, turn to people like Richard off. They gave him a PG-13 esport, mate. Yeah, it's all for adults. We're all players adults, and all the people watching are adults, but we pretend like the average viewer is a 9-year-old Disney viewer. That is a turn-off for me. I don't, again, as Richard said, I want someone to be able to say fuck off, like they do in a Counter-Strike game, and go fuck you. That wouldn't make anyone punch their person in Counter-Strike, bro. That's some riot guy thinking it's in the 19th century or something. I don't
It's not just that. I mean, the writing was on the wall, and again, I know Papa will remember this. But let's not forget, I think it was Dignitas that they punished for dancing in the fountain over ending a game, right? Because they considered it bad.
That exact example, the one when I think of Dignitas, I mostly think of that banning them for ARAM in the final situation. I don't remember the dancing one, but that makes sense.
Well, pretty soon, I don't know if they actually banned them, but I'll give you an example. They literally did fine High for doing a middle finger in a game.
Yeah, and High got fined for middle finger. It was basically they were doing the dances.
I mean, they don't like people. I think the kids call it tactical crouching. They don't, but they don't like people doing stuff like that either in their games.
But you should you should do what the NFL does, and this is the thing about being an independent league is the NFL hilariously these days they will fine players for celebrations that are apparently inappropriate, but then on the NFL Twitter and all social media they'll just post clips of that celebration.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, which is outrageous.
No, I agree. It's a good tactic.
Too.
It's a good tactic.
If you're like me, you hate pumping gas. It's time-consuming and expensive. Hi, I'm Sam Robbie.
Yeah, it's outrageous to do that. I mean, it really is, especially when you get into the realm of like, you know, oh, we don't want any political statements on your cleats, but you've literally got political statements in the end zone, and you're going to find a guy for having like a 9/11 memorial on his cleats. That's a real example that happened in NFL.
The first one I ever saw was
Fuck that league.
the first one I ever saw was like the yellow card for taking your shirt off in football, soccer. Like that was the first one where I was like, I was pretty young, I think, still when that happened. It's a while ago
And what
now.
started that, funnily enough, was it might have been a Liverpool thing actually, because I think it might have been when Robbie Fowler took his shirt off, and underneath he had a political
I
statement.
mean, Robbie
that
Fowler
said
got
he
fined for a
supported
lot
the
of different
Dockers
celebrations, bro. I still remember the cocaine one.
Part of his
Genius.
cheeks
That was
as
the
well,
cocaine one
to
was
Graham
the best one I've
Lazoe,
ever seen.
I mean, Robbie Fowler's a fucking legend and a lunatic.
Yes.
You won't believe this. My favourite player is a boy.
Of course.
Could have imagined.
But anyway, back to Duncan.
No, I want to talk about
Back to
the
point
LCS stuff because
I want to.
no, like
Yeah, but let me just elaborate on what Duncan was saying with the whole thing. It's not just that they Disneyfied like what Riot did with LCS. It's not just that they Disneyfied it, and it's not just that they actively punished anyone that showed any kind of like edge to the personality. It's that they had opportunities to like actually bring in people that like would have absolutely shot. Like it's like, you know, the Tyler one thing was like a no-brainer. And
There's their XQC.
Yeah.
And the best part is, just like XQC, turned out he was actually like a wizard at every game too. He was like a chess master. Again, and you thought he was just some dunce.
You thought he was a meathead, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? The only reason he ever got involved officially with the product was by way of an apology because an employee said he hoped he got cancer.
Yes.
And it leaked,
Yes.
and so that, and then Riot go, haha, look, see, we can hang with the kids. It's like, no, you can't. You have no interest in any of this. People like me, you know, like that watch Counter-Strike. Think about all of the things we get in that compared to like what you get in League of Legends, and there's nobody actively trying to smash all the character out of Counter-Strike. There's no like, you know, Valve aren't coming to people before the majors and going, listen, no flipping anyone off. Like, we've literally got, like, the IGL are the best team in the world right now, literally comes on stage, and the crowd chant, fuck you, Apex. He's flipping everyone off. It's like attitude. It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin, an attitude there in WWE. And it's fucking amazing, and it's great. And put it this way, back to my original point, before I toss it back to Monty, that's the type of entertainment you do say, listen, is the kid. I'm off. Sorry, darling. Right? It's worth it for that. It ain't worth it for some insipid.
By the way, speaking of fumbling, you had Reginald and Doublelift, and you didn't want people talking shit and being rude. You don't want to win, mate. You just don't want to win. You just don't want to win.
You had Reginald and Doublelift at each other's throat, and you could have hyped up that rivalry.
That would have been amazing.
Cut a fucking promo for it, UFC style, like Conor McGregor and Khabib.
Exactly.
And your viewership is back, but no, you apparently don't care about that. You don't. Like Duncan says, it's like Riot don't want to win unless they win only by their decisions, and then they make all the wrong decisions. So, right, sorry, Money.
No, I wanted to return it to the LCS and talk about how, you know, one of the ways with the state of League as it is currently is to find the people, like you guys are saying, and find the techniques that are contemporary and modern. And I do think that encouraging, not everybody is XQC, obviously. He's one of one. But having the players be encouraged to make this kind of content, because to Papa's point earlier, what made LCS popular in the first place wasn't the quality of the games. It was the personalities and the fact that there was no difference in 2012 between esports and the biggest streamers. These were the same people. They were the same people. And so you had the wave of millennial culture that was going along with that pushed people into esports. But there has been no adoption of contemporary techniques for people. Nobody, as far as I'm aware, is on their fucking TikTok stream, you know, showing how cool it is to be a pro gamer in the back of the LCS and what it's actually like, and doing these interactions as they go on stage. You know, there isn't the kind of content that resonates with people that will push people into becoming fans of the product.
Here's another example of where League of Legends esports is distinct from games like Counter-Strike, for example, where the developers put their hands on it, and it's up to the TOs what happens, and you can have different rules, right? Similarly, when we had that G2 CEO on, One of the things that actually baffles me, he was almost like begrudgingly laughing about how proud he was when he explained that he was the person who didn't allow call streaming in the LEC. Like, if you say something like that in a chat with me, I'm just going to call you a fucking imbecile. Like, that's not even funny to me. Like, I can get a dark humor on that. You're just a cretin. Like, again, you don't understand the modern delivery method. So here's an example I think is mental that isn't to this day a thing. What is this shit where they pre-approve call streamers and announce them like they were an alternate talent group, right? Who knew that Cadril would be the biggest League of Legends streamer in the world? Nobody. Not a single person. Well, you know how you find more Cadrils? Let people fucking do it. Like, I would have allowed literally, if you don't know how Counter-Strike tournaments work, you send an email in, but unless you're literally me who will 24/7 talk shit on the product, or you're someone who's unwilling to like let their sponsors be on screen, you're going to try and advertise a rival sponsor. Essentially, any non-retard can get the call streaming rights to a Counter-Strike tournament, including the major in certain cases. Maybe not this one because they had their own bizarre thing there because it was also with Kick, etc. But anyway, my point is, I would have, in the same way, Monty, as you have gone on about how all these games are developed from the sandbox, I would have just allowed carte blanche call streaming from day one. Because guess what? I want all the old pros to do the call stream as well. And maybe one of them doesn't. I can literally blow 200 of them can have 10 viewers as long as one of them hits. And mate, that's how you find people. Because there's another thing in the modern day. One thing we have learned about esports is it's actually somewhat diminishing returns. What people want from a tradition, what I want, a traditional, professional stream with the suit and tie, and you have the sheen of this is sports. I'm a boomer in that sense. The kids do want the Oni Pixel of the world. The joke is Oni Pixel even recently, right? Fuck, I'll do this. Or did this for in Valorant, and everyone was loving it too. Like, this is how the modern person views the game. They want a mixture of a podcast in the game, like they want a watch party in the game. Like, Riot is still just like putting their toes in the water on that and going, but should we allow LS to co-stream this other region? It's like, mate, the idea that's even a question is blowing my mind. The idea you would ever, by the way, go and do stuff like, Dom, I didn't like what you said in solo queue, you're banned from co-streaming for a year. Like, again, you're just taking shotguns and shooting your feet over and over again. The upside is so minimal for these
when
things.
it comes to co-streaming, you know what I've always wanted a broadcast to do? I've always and I've suggested this to some TOs, and I just hope someone runs with it, because I think it's a really cool idea. But I would like, while the broadcast is running, or maybe as in one of the gap days, but when the players are having a rest or whatever, you have a kind of a red zone, and it's all of the best bits of all of the core streams.
Right.
And then what you do, so you're obviously then promoting the core streamers, but you're also potentially, let's say like a core streamer, one of those guys that have 200 viewers, and something really funny happens, or he makes a really good observation or whatever it is, and you fold it into the highlight show. Because it's like, you should be saying to people, look, you don't just have to watch the official broadcast here, we're going to do it traditional sports style. We've got commentators, we've got an analysis desk. Of course, you don't even have that in LCS anymore, but whatever. But if that's not your style and you want to watch it, in a more casual setting, we've got XQC, we've got this guy, we've got that, we've got her, we've got this. Cool, like, just promote that shit and make it part of your product. You pull in all the numbers at the end anyway, you get reach, they have to promote your sponsors, that's part of the agreement. So, I don't understand the reticence for the model, because this idea that we pay for the broadcast, we pay for the tournament, so you shouldn't get the free content. It's like, it's not like they're not giving something back to you. You take their numbers, they give you their reach. People that would watch XQC watching LCS don't necessarily watch LCS.
Yes.
So it's so crazy.
By the way, I do think what you just said there was the flaw in the thinking. You just outlined it there. I do think before they thought, again, we only want to succeed via our method, which is the official broadcast. And then I also think they very naively, by the way, thought we will just cannibalize our own broadcast. As you just outlined, that's not true. In fact, in my opinion, Cadril getting paid that giant bag by EWC almost proves that actually, if Cadril doesn't turn his stream on, there won't be the same viewership to EWC. Yeah. They won't just be on the mainstream. They'll watch Cadril do whatever the fuck he's doing. So I do think that is you've outlined a key gap between what they thought and what was reality in my opinion.
I think the way, and I'm sure this is a popular opinion on this call, we're very biased in this sense, is the thing that I really resonated with when I was working for OGN, and this wasn't necessarily true with Riot Korea, they didn't really get it at the start, they got better at it these days, and definitely North America didn't subscribe to, is I love the fact that OGN, through their content strategy, wanted you to both look at a really talented player and be like, holy fuck, this guy is good, just like we would with, Messi or Ronaldo or a great sports player. But they also want you to like laugh at them for their like the fact that they were also an awkward nerd or came through the same way a lot of us come through like video game journey.
Makes you relatable.
And they would always make you relatable by showing both at the same time, knowing that if they showed you being awkward, you wouldn't like suddenly like, oh, that ribbon outplay wasn't sick from you, Faker, against the Cassiopeia. Like, you would be able to like compartmentalize both sides. I think that the Riot Global, especially the LCS approach, up until very recently, was very much NFL focused. You guys know that. Like that's like the tone they were policing towards and trying to make decisions towards.
By the way,
And I
also
think
hilarious because they didn't have anybody from the NFL that they actually hired. So it's a bunch of people saying NFL without actually knowing anything internally about the NFL.
and that's what they were going for, which obviously it does affect the tone of your broadcast and things like that. And I think that's why co-streaming was so positively received, in 2020, because it was so different to the tone Riot was putting out until maybe end of 2022, early 2023.
By the way, also, how hilarious is it that even the NFL benefits more fucking
Nowadays.
probably.
So the big missed opportunity I see that I'm sure you guys could also make the connection of is the inspiration that I think Riot missed because they didn't see it as sports entertainment. They saw it as like a pure sport. Is WWE, just because the one thing people probably don't know is that the biggest, for a long time, these stats can change, but for a long time they had like the biggest YouTube channel in the world. They have always been a first move on every emergent social media or video streaming platform. For example, they were like the biggest Vine account in the world for when that was relevant for half a second. Obviously, they were early on YouTube, early on every single platform, and I think you guys are talking about, why not turn on your TikTok? I think obviously the market is saturated in these things. We can look at reasons why not to do it, even though the answer is you should still do it, and some cream will rise to the top. But I think if League of Legends esports had the same mindset of like, here's the newest thing that's out, how can we show off what is special about our project or our property to the world?
They were late
and
on
they were,
TikTok,
They were
mate.
They were late on everything. They were always protectionist, I think.
But
You get the idea of like, why can't we have that in our client or what? They always wanted to be like, how can we control it? When in reality, if they just jumped on every trend, then as we know now, in the world of algorithms, they'd be getting served up way more than they are.
I think one of the things about Cadrill's success, which is underappreciated, is that he was like the only League esports content creator on TikTok for a long time. Because he was on there first and his clips were blowing up, and other people are on there now, but he's still the biggest. And not only that, but people who are on TikTok will remember how good the LPL's TikTok was. Like, fucking hilarious memes.
Yeah, I remember.
Like,
By the way, Monty, along these lines, I'll tell you another example of a fumble, right? Another person in League who is huge on TikTok is Shocks.
Yep.
Bro, if you'd played that right, that'd be on your channel. She'd have just been putting that background content on your channel and blowing it up. But
Or
instead, she's on
learn
her
from
own channel because you haven't provided that avenue or you haven't negotiated a contract, etc. Like, this is one of the saddest things is like, I'm not even saying like see into the future and be presciently figure out the next. Like, that's hard to do. I totally acknowledge that. Some of these things were just right there. And as we noticed, the same theme keeps coming up. Riot doesn't want to succeed by any means necessary. They want to succeed in a very specific way that sometimes the problem might be that decision tree might not ever get to success. And that mentality is a flaw.
I don't think that is their mentality anymore, but in the time where it needed to not be their mentality, it was their mentality, Duncan, is the best way. Because I can even say my journey of like 6 years now of being, directly working with Riot on a product, the LCS. For the first few years, it was incredibly difficult to kind of push forward any new ideas or critique. I would not say that about the last couple years. And again, we can all point and laugh as to why, or kind of like ascertain as like, obviously the relevance of the esport wasn't what it once was. But personally, I find it a lot more rewarding to work in this space now. And the only analogy I can give is, if I win a title with an unlimited budget, it's way less rewarding than winning a title with a small budget. Like it is fun to try to make the most of the scenario that it is now, but we can only look on and scorn as to the missed opportunities of 2014 to 17 for sure.
it's a brand new year here in 2026, and if you're looking for some personal improvement, You might look at and deodorant cream using that and hair to freshen up. You will have it.
In a world where every second of heat can change a batch, where dough strength shifts with humidity, Ali learns.
So I want to talk about the business realities of League of Legends esports and the LCS. Recently, the head of business over at T1 has come out and publicly stated that it's very difficult. Very few of the teams are profitable right now. During the pandemic, we know that Riot, I mean, you're not going to be able to comment on this, but we know that Riot was increasing payments to the teams because there was a bit of a crisis and there used to be a flat stipend that was given. Riot has since announced that basically the reason why they were getting rid of some of the franchise teams in the league and reducing the number of leagues worldwide was that there were too many professional teams to divide the amount of money that was the revenue that was being generated, which is very reasonable, I think, to say that. And they've kind of switched their system over towards.
I do love that though, because that's actually a really good short-term move, Monty. Hey, I'm not getting enough of this pie. Kick two people out. Give me all of it.
I know, which also flies in the face of Riot's messaging for a decade of we're gonna grow the pie for everybody, which is one of the stupidest fucking analogies. Growing the pie has to be one of the most bullshit corporate buzzwords imaginable. It's fucking garbage. Anyway,
by the way, also, just as a random shout out, if any of you just happen to be watching, the joke is you pro players don't even watch content yourselves. That sort of says something. But shout out to every pro who participated in the LCS player walkout 2 years ago over NACL salaries. Now you get paid NACL salaries. How did that work out?
Less,
you picked the dumbest time in the history of the fucking sport to do a player walkout, guys. Well done. But anyway, just a shout out.
but the realities of esports business right now for Riot is they're trying to switch the model where the skin lines that are advertised during international events now contribute part of that revenue into a shared global revenue pool, which they basically after the revenue all goes in, they will give it to the teams. This is different than the set stipends that were given to teams previously, where there was kind of like a known amount for being a franchise team that was inside of the team agreement. I know you're not going to be able to comment on this, Papa, because you are in fact bound by confidentiality clauses on this. But I'm telling people, in a theoretical universe where now we've changed this fundamental model, because you have to remember last year was the year that all of this, like the new contracts went into effect, right? And so Riot has drastically changed the payment model because they are trying not to lose money. It's my understanding, and again, you don't have to comment on this, Papa, is my understanding from talking to not Riot, I know you're watching this, from not talking to Papa Smoothie, from talking to other people, guess who they are, that basically the mandates from Tencent have come down, and they have said, you need to cut costs on this esports nonsense. And so that's why you guys are seeing a lot of the changes that are taking place from the business.
So, by the way, that's one area I do have mild sympathy for Riot. Okay, you have to reverse all these bad trends and build the viewership, but you got less money to do it.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, that chance to be a fine thing. Fuck the fuck.
And it's my understanding that Daddy Tencent is doing this. They're taking a more direct hand in this. And you can see Tencent themselves doing it, such as they were responsible for the LPL English broadcast. That wasn't Riot's responsibility. They weren't paying for that. And that has been cut by Tencent directly, and then Riot, opted to pay for that for a limited amount of time afterwards before kind of kicking it back to the fans. So as a team, Papa, now you have less competition now with the LCS size reducing, but sponsorships are still tough to get in this space. Esports Winter still has had a chilling effect, right? How is it operating as a business within the world of LoL esports right now? Part of this isn't Riot's fault at all. It's like the realities of Esports Winter we can partially blame Riot too, but it was also all the other developers' fault. It was a collective failure.
It was also the economic reality of kind of like the value of money and
yes, and also
venture
interest
capital
rates.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why VC dried up mostly, guys, was because when interest rates were close to zero, there wasn't a good way to actually invest money a lot of the time outside of taking these venture capital fund moonshots on tech companies. When interest rates rose, there became much more safe places to slowly and with less risk grow the value of your investment. And so that's why we saw dialing back. And then also the rise, obviously the collapse of the promise of esports, the collapse of the viewership of esports. It was really the lack of explosive growth that was anticipated. Just like a tech company, people thought like, here's our bet that esports is going to become the next NFL, just like this new company is going to become the next Uber or whatever. And when that failed to materialize, at least at the rate that people wanted to, they put their investments elsewhere. And now it's all AI, venture capital. What little there is left is all tied up in only AI, basically. But without that growth, a lot of the sponsors, haven't been willing to come back. With Overwatch League, we had Coca-Cola, and there was this bet from the sponsors as well that this was going to be something that had grown. And it, in fact, arguably has decreased on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at when the LCS franchising was. It was middle of 2017. It was obviously when, and I wasn't around for this, so I can at least speak from the outside how I observed it. It was, obviously it was around the time Overwatch was trying to try to get franchise partners as well. And if you try to perspective take where we are in 2017 and what kind of like headwinds there are, like at that time the MLBAM kind of platform and media rights was like, the BAMTech deal was either announced or about to be announced. That was
for context for people who don't know about this part of League of Legends history. MLB, as in Major League Baseball, had their own media platform, and it was announced that there was a $300 million media rights deal between Riot and this platform. This deal never materialized. Disney bought MLB, the BAMTech platform, and then nothing happened. And so I'm not sure if any money was actually ever paid to anyone as a result of that deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but obviously the actual platform never launched, right? So at that point, you're buying a franchise spot, as Twitch viewership is only growing, with media rights, one of the core kind of like revenue things for any sport, basically baked, or at least they either knew about it, it was either announced or it was about to be announced. It would have been at the water cooler, right? And the categories that were available, the most traditional, the idea that your franchise is going to give, both endemics and non-endemics more confidence in investing and partnering with you. So partnerships in esports is only going to swell at that time. Obviously, a lot of people are getting into sponsoring esports teams for the first time in 2018-19, knowing that teams are going to have a minimum amount of games and be relevant for years and not be relegated. Like the headwinds you're kind of setting a multi-year partnership. I don't know how, if that was ever publicly released, how long that partnership was. Like that was a very different world to the new model, which is the GRP model that all regions have taken on. The easiest way to explain is that obviously a lot of those categories didn't bear fruit. Like there was no media rights deals anymore, and if there were, the economics would have been different with that original
on top of
scenario.
that, without media rights deals, Riot was internally creating their own streaming platform, which during the Riot layoffs a couple years ago was actually canceled. So the new promise to teams was that, hey, we're going to have our own platform, right? And this is going to be much more lucrative because it's a first-party than Twitch, and that went away as well.
Yeah, so given that the media rights landscape didn't happen, Riot still actually has some very, very impressive partnership deals, league-wide with big partners, so at least they have that. But in terms of like, bringing new endemics to the space, because you guys were talking about bringing in new logos, we've actually been very lucky this year and have unannounced at the moment, but soon to announce like big new partnerships we're proud of, but that doesn't seem to be a very common thing, and maybe that's just because of our recent success. I know you guys are always kind of bringing in new partners too, so it's a different world than 2017 for sure. So when you look at what Riot is now saying to teams, the GRP model, it's, hey, we really know how to sell skins in our game. That's like something we're good at. We've always been good at that. How about we create certain skins timed around significant esports moments, and you guys help sell those to your fan base, because coming from you, it's going to be like a different voice than coming just from us. That's like absolutely a believable thing. And I do think that the current model of let's let's let esports teams sell League of Legends is actually a very meaningful change that sounds subtle to most viewers, because actually teams don't have like we can't just sell Teemo shirts, right? Like that's like Riot IP. So like selling League of Legends, like TSM I don't think was selling League of Legends, they were selling TSM, if you know what I mean. But TSM could have sold League of Legends, right? It's their fucking game. It's their main game. And now at least the incentives are aligned in that like FlyQuest is selling League of Legends. And that's part of our marketing requirements of our GRP pool based, in-game sales based kind of like mechanic. Like that's at least those things are.
Welcome to Summoner's